Hello and welcome to Post-Luxembourg webinar on Internet of Things. For those who are new to Post-Luxembourg, some details about ourselves. Post-Luxembourg is the former historic administration for postal services, financial services and telecom. It is now a company owned, an independent company owned by the Luxembourg state, AAA stakeholder, and an independent, strong stakeholder shareholder. We're still active in the three fields of courier services, financial services, and telecom. The biggest employer in Luxembourg, with more than 4,000 employees, and with 15 nationalities, we are a true international player. This leads me to present today's panel for the subject of Internet of Things. My name is Laurent Thomas. I'm head of the international department at Post Telecom, where we market and sell all the Post Telecom products on a global scale. And I'm joined today by Klaus Fuchs, account manager in our department, with a strong and long experience, over 10 years in the field of Internet of Things. Hi, Klaus.
Good morning, Laurent. Thank you very much for the short introduction. So we in Post have over 15 years experience in global IoT deployments, and we would like to share today some thoughts and views about this specific market in telecom.
Great. Also joining us from Israel, Dan Amir, a founder and CEO of IoT Solution, a long-time partner of Post Telecom. Dan is specialized in data, big data and artificial intelligence, and I'm eager to hear what he will share with us today. Hi, Dan.
Hi, thank you, Laurent, for inviting me, and I'm sure we'll have a very interesting session today. Thank you.
Great. The subject of today's webinar is called Smart Management of Your IoT SIM Fleet. And as you see on the slide, it says tips and tricks. With more than 15 years of experience, as Klaus mentioned, we have seen various developments and various behaviors in the market. And these experiences have sometimes been very beneficial and sometimes been less beneficial. And so it is our desire to share with you these experiences so you can make the best out of your existing IoT fleet or on your deployment of your IoT fleet. Just let me mention shortly also, there is a chat box in the webinar, so you are invited to ask your questions, which we will answer at the end of the presentation as well. The market overview, we see here on the slide, it's huge figures and huge numbers. These are figures that have been published recently by GSMA. So that says that we have another 10 billion IoT devices coming ahead of us in the next 4 years. And even if COVID has impacted the deployment speed, it is reported also recently that the strongest recovery will be in the enterprise IoT part in the cellular connectivity. So many companies have seen that the connectivity and remote management of devices and assets is a real asset and a real advantage for their company. And the number of companies investing into these technologies is increasing as well. So, as we have had a look over the general market, we will have to see what are the traps that you should avoid if you are deploying or you have deployed or you want to deploy your IoT fleet. And there I switch to Klaus, who can share with us some points how to manage that efficiently.
Thanks, Laurent. So the first topic is a bit about the key focus points everybody should consider when he's starting to deploy an IoT fleet. And there we notice that some customers think in small numbers, even so they have successful global products. So the first advice from us is to think big, because any IoT deployment starts, of course, small, but it can grow rather big over time. What is big? At least more than a few thousand devices. So here on this slide, you see, first of all, the globe, and meaning IoT deployments are often globally spread. So every customer of us, or every customer who deploys IoT needs a global partner who can serve global coverage. Even so, it's maybe not on the agenda today, maybe it is tomorrow. And on the left side, you see a real customer data. This customer wanted to start small, a couple of thousand units. He wanted to start in Europe. As you can see today, he has over 25,000 connected devices, and you can also see they are spread all around the globe. He had no idea to go to Australia one day. He had no idea to come to the States. But today he is present not only in Europe, also in other areas. And there it's important to have a global partner who can cover this. This comes then immediately to the next questions: with whom should I consult? So when we talk to customers, we often hear, I spoke with my mobile phone subscriber. Of course, M2M connectivity for IoT is based on cellular mobile phone technology. So from that point of view, it's maybe not a bad idea. But on the other hand, IoT service is completely different compared to a mobile phone subscription. And to talk to the standard mobile phone supplier could be a very costly mistake, because this customer may not provide the features someone needs for IoT. And later on, we will see what are these features, what is important to know. What we can tell you that we in Post Telecom, we are specialized in IoT, as we said already. We have global deployments. We have customers all around the globe. We have IoT devices which are connecting daily all around the globe. We love IoT. We are very dedicated to IoT. Even so, it's a small ARPU business, average revenue per unit, if you look at the single device. But of course, this is a bit balanced by the quantity. So like you saw in the previous slide, customers connect 10,000. We have customers with over 1 million devices. Multiplied by the small ARPU is for us an interesting business, especially as a small operator, having this in our focus to serve IoT deployments on a global scale. And this brings us to the point of challenges. So what are the challenges? What do you have to pay attention at? I mentioned already coverage. It's very important that you have a provider which gives you, in every market you want to enter, an excellent coverage. So we in Post have over 600 global roaming agreements. We have many areas outside Europe where we work with all network operators, for example, in Australia, in Canada, and in Europe anyway. So in Europe, apart from country of Luxembourg, we provide all mobile networks your IoT devices can connect to. And we do this without any steering. This is also very important. So we don't force your IoT device to connect to a dedicated network. It's completely open to connect to any network you receive a signal. So the network selection can be based on the strongest signal, for example. On top, we investigate a bit with partners about possibilities to choose on an automated level the best network. This technology is already available, runs at the moment only under Android, but there are IoT devices, for example, in parcel delivery services, which are running under Android. Idea is one day to bring it on a SIM level, that the SIM as such has a very good automated solution to choose the best network. Especially in cross-border traffic, it's important that the connection is done very fast and quick. If you look at eCall, if you drive with your car through Luxembourg, you are in a few minutes in Germany, then you're in Luxembourg for a while, you can enter Belgium or France, all within a very short period of time. So fast connection to a network is very important. And don't forget, your devices are usually unattended. You don't have a user interface. So it's very important to have a very good management and orchestration tool to see what your devices are doing, to reach them. For example, SMS shoulder tap to wake them up, These are tools which we offer to our customers. A last point on challenges, I would mention cost and cost optimization. This will be explained later on more specifically by Dan Amir, but I would like to mention already now that we have a retroactive billing engine, meaning at the end of the month our customer can still make corrections in his tariffs to make sure that his SIM fleet is connected to the best available tariffs according to his needs. At the end of this section, we would like to have a look at the growth. Laurent mentioned already that the market in IoT is, I wouldn't say exploding, but it's growing very, very strong. And these are the areas where we see at the moment the biggest growth. First of all, automotive and e-mobility. E-mobility is mainly charging. I just came back from a specific exhibition in Munich. So the charging market is really, really booming. And there we see a very big growth in IoT because most of the public chargers or all public chargers are connected. Also some private chargers at home are connected, especially when you want to run some cost sharing with your company in case you have a company car, stuff like that. Next very big topic is healthcare. Not only because we are unfortunately still in a corona situation in general, monitoring, for example, of elderly people by IoT devices which are connected to mobile networks is quite popular. Here in this picture you see a medical dispenser to make sure that life-saving medicine is taken on a daily basis, for example. If not, someone from the family can call the patient or a doctor can call the patient. We have here also video and audio functionality. Service and security, more and more services are managed by IoT, very important. And of course, the wide range of remote services. We have here a vending machine, for example. So all these services are much more easier and more efficiently to manage when the devices are connected and part of an IoT deployment.
Okay, thank you, Klaus. So it's important that you look at the deployment and your use case and your service that you provide to your customers in a big and holistic way in order to take the right moves into an efficient deployment. Now, once you have deployed your SIM fleet, obviously, or your IoT fleet, obviously, it's about managing costs. And there we have also some points of attention that need to be addressed. And there I would like to invite Dan to share us some experiences about how to efficiently manage the costs of an IoT fleet.
Yeah, thank you, Laurent. So we all know, and which is quite obvious, which is automation is at the heart of connectivity management, because eventually it enables removing the connectivity barriers that are required any IoT deployment to scale. However, in order to automate, any customer would need to gain deep insights into the subject matter, because incorrect setup of automation rules can cause severe damage, for example, a bill shock, and so forth. And there are many automations possible. The most common one from our experience are automations which are related to optimized dormancy. Dormancy is a big money drain, around 12% on average in the industry of SIM cards are dormant, meaning they're activated, they're bearing a subscription fee, but nobody is using them. And of course, automation can help solve this problem. Activation commitments, some telcos would have activation commitments in their contracts, SIM inventory, overage breakage, the ability to avoid over or underutilization of rate plans, using correctly the rate plans, network quality of service to be handled by automation, real-time usage restrictions are always, it's always very important to monitor specific SIM card that are considered as high runners to avoid very high bills, and so forth. And so forth. And what can be practically done at the end of the day would be to set up the right automation in the CMP platform in Jasper, for example. And what we see now is a very nice example of the IoT analytics tool, of a dashboard where dormancy is being analyzed for a specific customer. And as you can see on the bottom right side, the cohort is used to select only the SIM cards which are in dormancy periods which are above 12 months, meaning they are activated, they are bearing a subscription fee for over 12 months and nobody uses them. And of course, this analysis could be easily narrowed down to select a specific population and could be filtered by specific providers, because in this case there are 6-7 providers. It can be filtered by the rate plan, and so forth and so forth. So there are all the means to run a very deep analysis. And the second slide is also a very interesting true use case where you can see an analysis of activation commitments, where the grace period for the SIM card to be activated is 12 months according to the contract, and then it needs to remain active for at least 24 months. And as you can see, until recently, this customer suffered for high numbers of activation commitments, which were managed in an optimal way. This is the yellow part of the graph, and then after setting up the correct automation, it became blue, and it is managed perfectly. And this is a real use case that would happen again and again with many customers which are not handling automation correctly. Laurent.
Thank you, Dan. So yes, seemingly simple tasks to connect the device to a platform through the internet, through the cellular network, is indeed in its depth quite complicated and has wide implications. So this brings us to our sections of tips and tricks to share with you some subjects that we think is very important when you deploy your IoT fleet. We have selected 5 points: lifecycle management, simplicity, quality of service, and cost control, which we slightly addressed now, and obviously also the subject of security, and not to be neglected. So about lifecycle management, Klaus, what can you share with us about that point?
Yeah, let's start with lifecycle management, but want to come back to the previous words from Dan Amir, where he highlighted automation. And also coming back to what I said about think big. So an IoT fleet has several thousands, 100,000 of devices. So this automation part is very important. Otherwise, you need an armada of employees to monitor, control, set the configuration, and so on in the IoT fleet. And automation is also the underlying important element here on lifecycle management. So what do we mean? A SIM card is often inserted at the producer of the IoT device. This producer is not necessarily our customer. Coming back to the example of e-charging, an e-charger manufacturer is not, or most of the cases, not the service company who is running the e-chargers in the field. This is another company. So our customer informs us that our SIM card is needed at his production site, which could be a producer of chargers. So we ship SIM cards or SIM chips to this company. And our SIM cards are then in a so-called test-ready mode. They could be used, but we are not charging for them at the moment. They're inserted to the device, and at the end of the production cycle, the producer can even run a test and connect the SIM card to the network, make sure that it's working. And in that moment, it moves to the next stage, which is activation ready. Again, activation ready is not, we call it billable status. So it's still for our customer free of charge, because at that moment, the device is still at the producer. After the producer, the device is shipped to the customer, from the customer to his end customer. So there can be a period of several months in between. When the SIM card is already inserted, we make sure that it's working, but it's not used, and the customer, especially when he has thousands and thousands of devices, doesn't want to pay for the service. And that is the idea also of the lifecycle management, not to make it easy and simple for the customer without any manual interaction, but also to have here already control of his costs. Once an IoT device with an activated ready SIM is then in the field and starting a first data session, it turns automatically to the stage activated. And that is then the first day or the first month where we start billing the service fee for the IoT connectivity. And all this process is fully automated, no interference needed by the customer. We do have customers who want to interact with their customers before activation because they need, for example, a subscription or something. So the automated process can be interrupted before the activation. Normally it's not. Normally it goes automatically from test ready via activation ready to activated.
Thank you, Klaus. So it's important that these automations are being put in place to avoid, as you mentioned, to activate manually each and every card when it should be activated, or to avoid costs during the moment of time it has been put into the device until it is deployed. So quite important to remember. The next point I would like to address is the subject of simplicity. We, with all the passion that we have for connectivity, and I think we are not the heroes. Your product, your use case, and your service is the hero. So focus on deploying your use case and your value proposition to your customers, and keep the subject of connectivity as simple as possible. I pointed out 3 points of interest, or 3 moments of interest. Try to reduce the number of vendors as much as possible. You could theoretically go into an analysis and find which vendor is in which country or in which region less expensive than in another country or another region, and come to a fruit juice of vendors with theoretically optimized pricing. But it's going to be a nightmare to manage. So try to find one vendor or a minimum number of vendors who can reply to your connectivity requirements. The second point goes in the same or similar direction. Also here, depending on various countries, you can have a possibility to choose or select or hunt for an extra bargain in one country and on another. But at the end of the day, it will consume your operational time, and the total cost of ownership in order to produce this connectivity will be substantial. So ask your connectivity partner to group as many countries as possible in one single region, and push this commercial risk back to your connectivity partner. You should be focusing on your customers and on the deployment of your products. The third level also goes into the simplicity point, as it mentioned on the very top of the slide. In the rate plans that you can find with certain operators, you have certain tiers of rates. If you use network A, home network, at a certain percentage, then you have a price A. You use it to a lesser extent or to a higher extent, you have a price B. If you start roaming in an area which is not in the rate plan, you are subject to different pricing again. So the multitude of pricing in one single rate plan can be very toxic for your daily operations. Also here, I would recommend that you push this responsibility towards your connectivity provider and ask him a very simple fee for your needs, for your data need, voice or SMS need, per connected device. So keep it simple and push the commercial risk back to your connectivity operator, would be my message. The next point, obviously, that we mentioned is quality of service. And here I would like to give the mic again to Dan to share with us his thoughts on tips and tricks on the quality of service.
Thank you. So connectivity is the beating heart of every IoT deployment. And there will always be a certain percentage of connected assets which will suffer from low network quality of service. Specifically, the stationary deployments are sensitive to this topic. And we all know that the fact that, for example, a security device which is located in one corner of the room is enjoying, let's say, high or good coverage today, it doesn't mean that tomorrow morning the coverage will remain good. Many elements would impact coverage, even weather, leaves in the fall, snow, a new building that has been put in place, and the radio wave is hitting this building, and the entire radio planning has been changed. And the outcome of these coverage and quality of service issues in many cases can mean no service or degradation and the serviceability, which is very bad. And the KPIs that we recommend that you would aim to monitor would be, for example, what we call silent or silency, meaning SIM cards which are activated, they are, you expect them to generate traffic, but all of a sudden, very recently, they stop generating traffic. So this would be one KPI. A second API which we recommend you follow is overly chatty SIM cards, SIM cards which are generating many sessions compared to the rest of your population, to your specific population. High network consumption, of course, failed connection, which is a very interesting topic. I will touch this point very soon. Inefficient network usage, abnormal low network consumption, and so forth. And what can be done in order to handle quality of service issues? First of all, you can always fire a cancel location command through API or other means, and that will be like a soft reset to the SIM card that will enforce it to reconnect to the network, like putting your, for example, iPhone back and forth in flight mode, change communication plan, and also some more advanced solution which are involving over-the-air carrier swaps. In the next slide, we can actually see a very interesting example. Again, real data, real customer, where we are decided to analyze and to identify network lack of coverage issues. So this is what we call failed connection. When failed connection means units which are generating many 0-byte sessions compared to the rest of the population of this specific customer that we selected here. And heuristically, it means that the units are lacking coverage. With a few clicks of the mouse, we could analyze where the lack of coverage is, which end customers are affected. If the end customers are tagged, there is an SLA trend line, which can be monitored carefully, and so forth. Now, the next very important topic, which I would claim would be even critical, and I'm sure you all agree with me, would be the cost control. And the reason for that would be that connectivity and for most IoT deployment will have great impact on the total cost of ownership and your bill of material. And decrease in connectivity cost will impact your bottom line and will increase your EBITDA, which what we all dream about. The suggested KPIs to monitor would be, first of all, to predict usage and rate plan utilization, knowing in advance that you're heading into very high usage and you're overutilizing your rate plans would be a great mean to avoid a very high bill, because on a Jasper-like billing system, which is retroactive, you can perform your actions before the end of the cycle and impact your upcoming bill. Of course, it will be very important to monitor your total and average cost. As you can see in the slide, in this case, we are analyzing the average cost per SIM, and we selected only the recurring elements. By the way, on the left bottom side, you can also see a comparison analysis between the average cost between the different telcos that this specific customer is using on the IoTA system. Of course, and in the next slide, you will also see analyzing cost per 1 megabyte. Analyzing cost per 1 megabyte would be also a very interesting analysis, since at the end of the day, if you use more data, you can expect increase in the average cost. But if you're using more data, you would not expect increase in the average cost. And you would like to monitor this aspect very carefully. What do we recommend you do? First of all, predict your usage. and your bill and your rate plan utilization before the end of the billing cycle. Even more importantly, predict your overage. Make sure not only the overage within the allowance zone, but also out of the allowance zone, which would potentially become very expensive. After you receive your invoice, validate that the invoice is correct. Periodically analyze your optimal rate plan setup in terms of number of rate plans and the size of the rate plans. At the end of the day, also before the end of the billing cycle, optimize by moving the different SIM cards between your different existing rate plans to lower your bill. In the next slide, there is actually also a very interesting use case, which is predicting the rate plan utilization. If you are overutilizing, it means you will get an overage component in your invoice, which in many cases with some telcos can be expensive. Knowing in advance that you're heading into an overutilization on a specific rate plan is key to avoid bill shock. As you can see here from this screenshot, real data, of course, obfuscated, the 2 megabyte plan for the AT&T would be underutilized currently, and the prediction will be that it will be utilized way below the allowance. At least the customer can be happy that you will not get billed for overage, but also you can see here a breakage event, which is also kind of money wastings. Laurent.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, so lots of things to look at in connectivity and cost control to make sure that you save your bottom line. And last tip and trick from our side, and not least, is the subject of security. Klaus.
Yeah, very important topic. It's growing in the market to pay attention to security. Of course, we all read about cyber security, about hacking and stuff like that. But it was not always like that. And now security is becoming more and more in the focus of customers, specifically when they work with IoT devices. An IoT device is smart, but it's also vulnerable in terms of security. I remember examples of customers connecting an OBD2 dongle to their cars via the OBD interface, and that made the car quite open to the public, even the possibility to steal the car quite easily. So to have security in the focus is very important to make the whole application as secure as possible. So the first element we would like to mention is dedicated IP infrastructure. The most simple way to connect an IoT device is via a public APN we provide, postm2m.lu, and to use the internet, which is available. Then the security level has to be on device level or on application level. If the customer would like to have a dedicated IP infrastructure, we offer certain options, a dedicated APN, a customer APN, a VPN via an IPsec tunnel from the customer firewall to our firewall. There we can create a dedicated firewall instance, meaning that the customer has possibilities how to set the firewall. One option would be, for example, IP address range restriction. So that could be already quite helpful for certain applications. The second topic we would like to mention is audit trails, and it goes a bit in the direction what Dan said, also about costs, about automation and usage. So audit trails, you can detect anomaly usage. So if you have a device which should consume 5 megabytes, and all of a sudden it consumes gigabytes, then there is either an issue with the device or an issue with the usage. And via automation, you can detect this very easily by getting, for example, a message, this device is over-consuming, but also by an action. So we can program, or you can do it by yourself very easily in our management platform. You can program easily in automation saying if a device consumes X megabyte, deactivate it. Maybe you don't want to do that because it's not in line with a good quality of service, but in theory, you could block a device of doing further data sessions, data connections. Fraud detection goes a bit on security measurement on EMI level. So a SIM card on a SIM chip, it's not so much an issue. A SIM card is inserted in an IoT device, and maybe it's taken out of the device and used in a different device. So this can be detected easily, also fully automated by a rule which is triggering the change of the EMI. Again, then our customer can say, okay, what should we do when the EMI is changed? Worst case, he's deactivating the SIM, or he just wants to have a notification when this happens. Another security measurement on EMI level could be EMI whitelisting. In that case, the customer gives us the EMI range of his IoT deployment fleet, and we allow the M2M IoT SIMs only to work within this set of EMIs. So this is also quite a strong security feature. The verification, two-step verification is a feature, is a simple feature, but of course we have a two-step verification to enter to the portal. All our tools we have shown today, the Cisco Control Center as a main management and provisioning tool for the devices, but also the IoT analytics tool are hosted in the cloud, so the user can access these tools. And there we have, of course, a verification mechanism, different users, different user levels. On top, if a customer has additional specific security needs, features he would like to see, we have a specialized cybersecurity team within Post Telecom, so we can even access tailored or specific customer-related topics all around security to make the deployment as secure as possible today.
Thank you, Klaus. Thank you. So these were some tips and tricks. I hope they were interesting and beneficial for you, and they start a thinking process within your heads. We would like to conclude also today's session with talking about several trends in the IoT connectivity market. Some of you may be surprised not to see 5G here. 5G is a subject that will be coming into our market, but we anticipate this technology to hit our market by 2024 due to some standardization and regulations that need to be formalized still. So we choose three immediate trends, so immediate subjects that are not down the road, but just around the corner, and would like to share with you our thoughts on that. So we have eSIM, iSIM, and remote subscription management, connectivity orchestration, and the subject of 2G and 3G sunset, very important subject. So if we talk about eSIM and iSIM, basically most of people refer to this technology to the fact that you are able to change the profile of the SIM card, so the network operator over the air. This is partly true, but it's only part of the truth. In order to be able to do that, you need to have a remote subscription management platform. So it is not embedded in the normal infrastructure of a network operator. There needs to be a special setup to be able to perform that tasks. And also one subject of clarification is that this technology is not only linked to the eSIM and iSIM format. So you can also have the microchip industrial grade with an eSIM profile on it. So you could use the existing transmitter and insert an eSIM chip card in it. So not linked to the MFF2 or the iSIM, but also programmable on normal chip cards. When we talk about the second point, that carriers need to invest into a remote subscription management platform, there are also costs involved to that. These are being depreciated, but the costs are there. Likewise, the swap from one operator to the other operator over the air is technically feasible under certain conditions, but also is prone to additional costs. So my message here is, it is not a magic and miracle solution. It comes with a cost. So You have to evaluate the commercial impact if you would like to change from a connectivity provider A to connectivity provider B. And first estimations show us that there are actually two levels or two areas where it makes more sense than in other areas. On the one side, it is the higher the data volume you consume is per SIM, the more likable and the more commercially logic it is, or not logic, but plausible is it to look at the change if you want. On the other side, you have a very high volume of devices which are on the eSIM technology. Here we talk about excess of 100,000 cards. Everything which is in low consumption and in lower volumes than that, it is really, really tough to make it commercially work. So the reason why I'm addressing this is it is not a magic wand to solve all the problems. It is an additional tool in the connectivity business which can be used for a certain applications, but it's not one size fits all. The next subject would be 2G and 3G. We mentioned it, the sunset, which means Klaus.
That's correct. So we discussed a bit before the webinar how to handle this point, and as you saw already in the parts we have introduced, we try to be as open, as transparent to our customers. So the IoT sky is not always bright. We showed with issues and challenges clouds, and we usually have a solution how to move these clouds. When it comes to 2G, 3G, we are not magicians. We just have to give the warning and can tell you that 2G, 3G sunset has been quite painful experience for some of our customers, because in some markets 2G has been switched off by now. It started outside of Europe, in Australia, in the United States, but also now within Europe, for example, Switzerland, not too far away from here. From 3 networks, if I remember correctly, 2 have switched off 2G, and there's only one vendor provides 2G. In Germany, I saw at the registration that many visitors to this webinar are based in Germany. In Germany, we still have for some years 2G, which is also, by the way, the view of Post Telecom, to keep 2G, to free the frequency range in 3G. Of course, 4G is there, and then 5G. But unfortunately, in some markets, 2G disappears, in others 3G. There is no strategy, not in Europe, where we would expect a strategy, but there is no European strategy, and globally anyway, there is no strategy. So we have an international roaming team who provides us the latest information, so you can always contact us to get an estimation about the sunset times in certain markets. But it's definitely not a very pleasant situation, because in some markets we will have 2G and others not, and some IoT devices are still based mainly on 2G. So the easiest solution is to move to 4G. For some IoT deployments, this is not an option. A 4G modem is quite expensive. The battery consumption of 4G is much higher compared to 2G. But where it's possible, we can recommend to use 4G. In the future, of course, then 5G. Narrowband is an option. We have upgraded our own network towards LTE M1. And this brings us in the situation to agree bilateral roaming agreements on LTE M1, which we are doing. So we do have already coverage in certain markets here, but also to mention already the down point, not every operator is offering LTE-M. So if you're looking really for a global or European-wide distribution on a narrowband technology based on LTE-M, this will not be possible, but it can work in certain areas. And we, of course, will make sure in the future that we have as many LTE-M agreements as possible. And they don't come automatically. We always have to talk to the operator in charge. We have to make tests. We have to agree on a specific contract for this type of narrowband technology. And then slowly we will provide this as well.
Thank you, Klaus. But just to emphasize the weight of this sunset, So if the 3G and 2G network is switched off, the device cannot transmit anymore. So we have to physically, or somebody has to physically change these sending unit, transmitting unit to 4G or to another
No, it's not on SIM
technology.
level, it's indeed on device level, on the communication module. So in the coming years, it will disappear completely, and if the modem is not able to submit on 4G, it must be either a narrowband, and the customer has to check, is the coverage of narrowband good enough for me or not, and is the data throughput good enough for me? So there are also technical restrictions, or alternatively to use 4G and in the future 5G.
But in any case, a change of hardware is needed if the transmitting device is not 4G capable.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. We talked about orchestration, which is, and I like the heading of this chart, the Gordian knot of connectivity management. I didn't come up with this, but Dan came up with this, so I give the comment of this slide back to Dan. Can you share with us your thought on the connectivity Gordian knot?
Yes, you know, this topic is very close to my heart. So the IoT trend today is that businesses are going global. And when the IoT connected enterprises are going global, they are in many cases required to source connectivity from more than one telco. There are many reasons for this. For example, permanent roaming would not be allowed in certain countries. So there would be regulation restrictions. There would be cost implications, quality of service. So many enterprises would find themselves sourcing connectivity from multiple carriers. And in today's IoT world, connectivity supply and management are tied in a Gordian knot. It means that the connected enterprise always manage connectivity with the tools that the telco offers. So if you buy connectivity from AT&T, you will get the Jasper CMP to manage your connectivity. And at Post, we consider this as a technological lock-in, which eventually increases cost for the customer, creates complexity, and also blocks innovation. When you buy from multiple telcos, eventually you will need to handle multiple connectivity management platforms, which is very complex. To have a few systems for each telco, you need to train your team to be acquainted with platforms which might behave very different from one to another. If you integrate to APIs, you would need to replicate this integration, which is eventually very expensive from an R&D point of view, and then you will have to probably to be also involved with manual processes which increase your complexity. So in the next slide, you can actually see that what IoTA is offering quite uniquely in market is the possibility for the first time to decouple connectivity management from the telco. So the connected enterprise can continue buying connectivity directly from the telco, enjoying all the great financial benefits of having direct relationships with the telco, while the post-Luxembourg IoT solution provides the connectivity management aspect under a single pane of glass. You can call it a connectivity orchestration platform. The result and the benefit from such solution to a connected enterprise would be, of course, the availability of new functionality. The fact there is one platform that is managing all the telcos under one set of APIs and one set of web application. Ultimately, the connectivity bill would be optimized. Of course, you get better speed of innovation because we can give you access to APIs that you need which are not available today, but our roadmap and release is quite fast and agile. And all this is also based on together with the fact that this connectivity orchestration platform that here in IoTA we specifically offer is based on AWS, gives us the possibility to offer the service based on the different 20 regions that AWS would offer. And at the end of the day, as you can see, IoTA enables any connected enterprise to take his existing telcos deployment, being post SIM cards or other carriers' SIM cards, onboard them in a completely zero-touch, self-provisioning, self-onboarding process, put everything on the post connectivity orchestration platform and manage everything under one set of APIs, one API integration, one set of web application that will simplify, harmonize, and make things very easy for the end customer. Laurent.
Thank you very much, Dan. Very interesting and very interesting indeed. Well, that concludes our part of the presentation. I hope it was insightful and helpful with your projects for those who are looking at us. And we open now up for questions. So I'm eager to hear which questions we may have had during our presentation. Marion?
Yes, the first question is, what risk do you see in the new European cybersecurity rules regarding needs of VPN, accessibility from external, etc.?
That was long and very quick. Can you repeat, please, again?
Yes, what risks do you see in the new European cybersecurity rules regarding needs of VPN, accessibility from external, etc.?
Well, I rather see an opportunity than a risk here. We have, as Klaus mentioned it, quite a tight security setup which can be scaled up, and our dedicated Post Telecom cybersecurity team is definitely on that subject. And I think that with regards to our efficiency and size and quality, we can be very agile and a very performant partner to address these subjects.
Thank you, Laurent. The second one, where do you see the benefits of LTE Cat M1 technology versus LoRaWAN other LP1 technologies on free spectrum?
LTE Cat 1 versus
LoRaWAN other LP1 technologies on free spectrum.
Would you like to take that question?
I didn't understand the second point.
Where do you see the advantage or the difference between different use case between LTE Cat 1 and
LoRaWAN other LP1 technologies?
Or other non-cellular technologies?
Okay, this has to be analyzed on a deployment size level. So LoRa, we do not offer LoRa services, but as far as I remember, it's mainly a private network infrastructure built in bigger cities. So, for example, for a parking IoT application, which is mainly hosted in parking places in bigger cities, this could be an option. LTM, I mentioned it, we already offer LTM services. So we have to look a bit at the data throughput, because it's of course much less than you're used from 3G or 4G. Of course, the cost of the modem is quite attractive. What we hear from the modem manufacturers, the battery consumption is quite attractive. So there is no standard answer to this question. It really depends to the coverage which is needed for the deployment, the lifetime of the product, the area, mobility. Is it a moving, correct? Is it a moving product or not? I would say this is more a question where we need to understand better the deployment, and everybody who raised this question or interested in this topic, feel free to contact us after the webinar. And we will ask you some specific questions, and then we can more specifically answer this question.
So there is no definite answer to this. It's more like a use case basis. If your expected behavior of your IoT fleet goes in a certain way, then maybe the technology of LoRaWAN is going to be more interesting. If you have another use case and your SIM fleet is supposed to behave a different way, then you may be well consulted to look at another technology.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we have questions more about the platform. What is the minimum number of IoT SIMs necessary to benefit from the system?
From the IoT management platform?
Yes.
Well, the IoT platform and the IoT analysis platform are not free of charge. So I would say we are eager to serve our customers everywhere around the world, but if you have a deployment size which is not in excess of 10,000 SIM or 10,000 devices, it's going to be commercially very difficult for you to find an attractive price for that. So this is a bad answer, but I think that's the only answer I can give at this moment. We have seen that the cost, yes, is interesting if you start having a SIM fleet in excess of 10,000 SIM cards.
But the good answer I can add maybe is that the IoT analytics is sitting on top of our management platform, which is provided by Cisco, but it also interconnects, as Dan explained, with other platforms, Ericsson and others to mention one. So we have the data, we can synchronize any account in IoT analytics, and we do open a kind of basic services also for smaller customers. We appreciate to work also with smaller customers because, like I said in the beginning, IoT fleet starts small but grows big. So not every customer is by nature a small customer. It can turn out to a big customer. And it's also a question like we see in our monthly analysis, also the question not only the number of SIM fleets, also the data throughput.
Consumption, yes.
No, the consumption.
Correct.
Anyway, so every customer who would be interested to have a live look at his SIM fleet can be connected very easily to IoT analytics, at least for a certain period of time.
Yes, as a test.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
I hope
you.
this answers the question.
Can third-party cards also be used in the platform?
I didn't hear, sorry.
Can third-party cards also be used in the platform?
Third-party cards in the IoT analytics platform, yes. So the analytics platform, Dan, if you would like to answer that question.
Definitely. So today the IoT platform supports out of the box over 100 mobile carriers, all telcos which are based on the following CMPs: Cisco Jasper, Ericsson DCP, Vodafone GDSP, Verizon ThinkSpace, and AT&T EOD. We're talking about over 100 telcos that are using these 5 platforms, are supported, and any connected enterprise that is buying today connectivity from one of these 100 plus telcos can self-provision, self-onboard themselves to the IoT platform. No setup, no integration, no customization is required. It's a completely zero-touch process, so you can take your 500,000 SIM cards or your 500 SIM cards, onboard them, and enjoy the analytics services without any effort, and truly a process that literally takes less than 1 minute.
Thank you, Dan. So this is the long version of yes, right?
Exactly.
We have
one last question, maybe?
You have last one question to conclude. My customers are very focused on freedom to live. Do you support that a new operator can download their profile to your SIM cards when the contract with you is over?
This is part of the business proposition. A contract has an initial duration period and can be extended if desired by the customer. If the customer wants to change the operator, I assume we're talking about the eSIM technology and the remote subscription management. If the contract comes to an end and is not reconducted, then it's inherent part of the business that this customer may choose to load another profile on that device over the air. That's the So that's the part of that's the core element of the eSIM technology. So that's definitely feasible. Okay. If there are any other additional answers or questions, first questions and then the answers. If there are any additional questions we were not able to answer, or any ideas that you have that came to your mind during this presentation and this webinar, feel free. Call us, interact with us. We are there to help you and to consult you in all your questions that you might have. I include Klaus and Dan in this invitation as well. So contact us. You see the contact details on the slide. And I'm pretty sure when we send you the replay link, you will see also a button where to connect us. Having said that, I would like to thank you very much for having shared this moment with us. I hope it was insightful. I repeat myself, but I really hope it was. And I wish you good luck and lot of success with your business endeavor. And I would like, obviously, to thank Dan for his input during this session, and I would like to thank Klaus as well a lot. I think you made this webinar very fruitful and interesting. So thank you to everybody, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With M2M, speed up your processes and reduce your costs. Are you looking for an M2M connectivity provider? Post Telecom covers various industries. Choosing Post Telecom means choosing the #1 telecom provider with more than 10 years of experience and more than 2 million SIM cards in service. We offer high-quality services and the best coverage thanks to a dedicated and geo-redundant infrastructure, roaming agreements, and our own backbone and data centers. Whatever your project, we adapt to your needs with a competitive pricing. With M2M, speed up your processes and reduce your costs. Are you looking for an M2M connectivity provider? Post Telecom covers various industries. Choosing Post Telecom means choosing the #1 telecom provider with more than 10 years of experience and more than 2 million SIM cards in service. We offer high-quality services and the best coverage thanks to a dedicated and geo-redundant infrastructure, roaming agreements, and our own backbone and data centers. Whatever your project, we adapt to your needs with a competitive pricing.